Um,
Woo, how about that music? I've got my hoodie on. I feel like I am Rocky Balboa. I'm about to go on out on the scene and knock out some bad decisions with some trusted data sets and reports. Now I've got to fix my hair, so forgive me. But hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeremy, and I am the VP of Product Marketing at Wiiisdom. Today, we are going to introduce you to and tell you a little bit about our brand new product, Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI. Now, I am joined by my colleague, Patrick Pellier. Patrick, will you introduce yourself? How did that go for the accent? Good, I think.
that was the great. Think of the champagne, Patrick Perrier.
Perrier.
With the hoodie, though, here we go. Hey, super happy to be here. I'm the head of product at Wiiisdom. Based out of London in the United Kingdom. And I've been around Wiiisdom for 6 years. Before that, I've done about 20 years in the BI analytics industries with a different number of roles for, SAP Business Objects, Tableau, and very happy to be here to talk about Power BI.
Well, good, Patrick. And like I said, I lead product marketing here at Wiiisdom. As a side hustle, I teach courses on data and analytics at Tufts University, where we dig into a lot of topics, one of which is data culture. And we're going to speak a little bit about data culture and trust as a component of data culture, and ultimately how you can create trust in your BI content like reports and data sets through the magic of automated and continuous testing. Bing, bang, boom. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So just to, tee things up, Wiiisdom has been in business for more than 16 years. We have been helping customers build trust in analytics and increase confidence, obviously in the data-driven decision-making that extends from that through really three different things: automated testing, BI content lifecycle management, and this idea of analytics observability. We started our journey with SAP Business Objects. We introduced a product for Tableau just a couple of years ago, but today, I don't know if you can hear the drum roll or if I'm just like aggressively tapping at my desk for no reason.
I can hear, but I'm waiting for more suspense.
Today, we are here to talk about the newest member of our family, Power BI. Patrick, we released Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI on October 3rd at the Microsoft Power Platform Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yes. Tell us about it. How did it go? Tell us about some of the conversations you had.
Well, the first thing, it was awesome to do a live product launch, live on LinkedIn. We had a massive big banner that some of you might have seen where I was there with a couple of colleagues. There was Bruno, there was Michael, there was others where, we just unveiled these big packages, and behind the package was Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI. And it was great. We met at the stand over 450 different people coming from mainly the United States, being in Las Vegas, but a lot from Canada, a few from Europe, so many different industries. And yeah, it is a constant topic, and that is a good segue to the next slides. People know that Power BI is really powerful. You can create a lot of content easily, but with great powers comes what, Michael? What, Jeremy?
Great responsibility.
Great
in the words
responsibility.
Of my personal hero, Spider-Man. Great responsibility.
That's exactly that. And yes, now let's just note lots of content, and people want things to go well. And one thing people don't want is this.
Yeah. Truer words have never been spoken. We've all felt, the pain of not thoroughly testing data sets, of not thoroughly testing reports, either during the initial development process. We've also felt the pain that stems from neglecting to monitor that content once it's been released into a production workspace, right? Imagine that you go to access a report to pull the latest numbers for a meeting and it doesn't work. You ping a business analyst, somebody on your team to see what's happening. And this person says, oh yeah, it looks like something happened to the data set. There was a column name change or something happened in the DAX code. Bottom line is something happened. I can fix it because I'm amazing, but it's going to take some time. I suppose as painful as that is, at least you know something is wrong. Unfortunately, there are some issues that are just not noticeable until it's too late. You go on to Power BI, navigate to a workspace, access a report, everything looks correct. And so you decide to make a decision and take action, but only later do you realize that that data was incorrect, which potentially caused really big losses for your organization and more. Let's talk about some of those risks just for a brief minute. If you go off to the next slide, Patrick, I mean, poor analytics governance, and that is really the term that we're putting around everything that we're talking about today. Poor analytics governance can lead to very significant and costly risks, right? I'm not going to go through all of these categories in general because you can allow your mind to run wild, not with fake examples, but with real examples that you've all experienced. But the one that I do want to talk about just for a second is trust. When people are repeatedly burned by and exposed to, all of these different risks that surround this wheel, they adopt old behaviors. They reestablish data silos. They once again rely on data downloads for reporting. And this further increases the risk exposure for the organization across all of these categories. That is the problem. That is the pain. Those are the risks that Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI eliminates. So let's head off to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Patrick. We'll talk about it briefly. Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say for people listening to this, and I'm sure it resonates a lot in the world of Power BI, but people who are here and maybe are newer to the world of BI analytics and Power BI, just think of your Excel spreadsheets. For sure it happened that you had a very simple sum, A1 to A100, but you know what? There was more data added after the sums, and you had incomplete results or a VLOOKUP not taking the right information. It's just so simple mistake to make, but when you take it in the world of a giant solution like Power BI, I would say in one hand it might even be easier to do, and with maybe sometimes greater consequences. So it's and at Wiiisdom, what we've released for Power BI a few weeks ago in Las Vegas, like we said earlier, is the ability to give you the power of the solution to this problem, and it is to test and deploy at scale. And more specifically is test your data sets. We know you have a lot of those, and we know they are very complex and advanced. And test those reports as well, and keep monitoring when they are in production. Well, we can help you with the deployment between workspaces. We can help you with validate row-level security. There's a lot of things that we can automate, and that way you don't have to do manually anymore. And just like the previous slides with those, chat windows, is detect problems, catch these errors before the end user, so you can react, in a timely manner. And the objective at the end of the day is simply trust. Make sure that the people who consume your content, when they go to a meeting, they know they can trust, and if they trust, they'll adopt your content you're creating, even quicker, and everybody's happier about it. Jeremy, what do you think?
Well said. I think you said it very well. I'm eager to see this thing in action. So what do you say?
Why don't we do this?
We do some magic alt tabbing and show this thing in action.
Alt tabbing. Let's make sure we have a nice transition between our slides and our product Wiiisdom. So what I'm going to show you here, so I will do 3 demos today with a little pause between those 3 demos. And these short demos of about 5-ish minutes each we'll talk first about testing data sets, and then we'll talk about testing reports, and I'll show you how we can deploy it. And all that using a very simple solution, and you can do that at scale. Now, first thing first, testing data sets. So using a no-code interface, I'm going to call this demo test my data sets. And my data sets really live on workspaces, of course. And now, using very simple clicks or drag and drop, I will be able to create some validation steps, some monitoring steps. So take this scenario of you have a data set, and of course, you know that your data set should never have empty tables, right? This is what we hear. Sometimes people manually, they log on and all they do is make sure that my data set should not be empty. So here's my data set. I have a number of tables here. This data set is refreshed on a daily basis. And unless the refresh fails, there should always be some data. So I'll say here, well, here's my district table, and my district table should never have 0 count of rows, right? I can apply different things, of course, but because I want to make sure my entire data set is never empty, I'll just say, hey, what about all rows? One click, here we go. So first thing first, I'm now making sure that my data set is never empty. Other things that people are saying is my data set should always have yesterday's value, because yesterday's value is how my refresh process works. Well, there's no problem. Once again, we can use the table statistics as you're using in Power Query, for instance. Now, I have this table here, and this table for my deals contains a columns with dates, and the dates should always have yesterday's value. So then I could say that, hey, the max dates I should see in that column of that table should be today, but minus 1 day. Here we go. So it's dynamic. Automatically, when you run the test, we'll say, hey, yesterday was what? The 23rd of October. Well, there should not be dates which are older or newer than that date here, which is, again, great. So that is one way that we can help you validating that my data set is up to date. Another thing is validating the values. So values inside of those columns. So again, if I pick my same data set and I'll say, okay, this is a data set about my sales in the US, which is great. So let's have a look at the stores. And I want to make sure that the stores I'm looking at are all within a very specific territory. So I could go here and type the values manually, but because I want to do this quickly and I'm a little bit lazy and I want no typos, I'm going to get all my territories, which are some American states here, all in one go, coming from an Excel file. Now, you know what? Let's create another rule, because again, this should be these states in that order. So I'm not expecting to see New York, and I'm not expecting to see California, which is a shame. Napa Valley, I like wine, so no stores from Napa Valley. All right, so only these states, none of these states, and that's great. So again, making sure the accuracy of the data. Now, we could create more things with row level security, make sure that me, Patrick, in the UK, I can only see European data, but Michael, North American data. But let's move now to something which is a little bit more advanced, which is really nice. Now, not only I want to make sure that I'm looking at the right stores, but I want to make sure I'm looking at very, very specific cities. So I want to check that my filtering on data works well. What I'll do here is I'll create a quick filter. I'll say, hey, my stores, I want to make sure that I'm only looking at North Carolina. Why not? So I've applied one filter here. And then, because I'm looking at North Carolina, I should see the city of Charlotte. Jeremy, you're the American guy. Give me another city in North Carolina.
Raleigh.
Oh, man, I knew you were going to say that. How do you say it?
Do you know how to spell it? That's the big question.
E-I-G-H. Is it like this?
You got it.
Okay, excellent. Here we go. So now I have created a number of things. And with this here is my data set empty, yes or no? Is it refreshed with latest data? Do I have the values I'm expecting? And if I filter, do I have some relationships between tables that are making sure, validating a bit of the joins, that sort of things. Now, remember, we want to find problems before the end users. So when I'm going to automate this thing here, this is where I want to say, I want to email Patrick to tell him if there is any failure. And maybe I want to go on my Microsoft Teams or Slack and say, okay, here's my HTTPS, right? I will add the URL of my Teams channel. And once again, maybe I want both. Maybe I want to just make sure that the test has run, but also when it's on failure. So a bit of post processes here. And now here we go. I have my brand new pipeline. All I have to do is run it right now.
Click play.
But because you refresh on a daily basis, here we go, schedule it, automate that thing much better. All right, so I'm going to run this here. All right, it is running. It just takes a few seconds. Unless there's a demo effect that is going to impact my thing here. Here we
Time
go.
for jokes. Oh, there we go.
Now, you know what? I always do the same thing. This is so advanced. I can create pipelines, guys, a bit of a mini training here. And these pipelines, I can decide if I want them to continue on errors or not. And I always remember, in this case, for completeness of demo, I did want the pipeline to continue on error. So that way, I can show you absolutely everything. Here we go. So first thing first, I have a really user-friendly report to say, hey, my tables, are they empty? No, they're not empty. Everything is green. That's great. A bit of metrics to show you what's going on. Now, I said, you know what? It should be yesterday's data. Here we go. Here's yesterday's date. Some problem here. I only have 2014's data. So I haven't, there's some delta data. There's a problem somewhere. So that way I can detect that my data set is not up to date as I wanted. I said I wanted to see all of these specific states. Good news, I do see all these states, and even excellent, I do not see New York and California. Everything is excellent. But big problem, I said, hey, I want to filter on North Carolina, and I should only see Charlotte and Raleigh, which, hey, I spelled it correctly, great, but I see more cities. So there is something wrong somewhere. So again, if I go back here and I do a little bit of summary, what I've shown you right now is creating a pipeline, adding a bunch of steps to make sure that your data set is, not empty, is up to date, and has the values in columns that you have chosen, so you can make sure that it's accurate. And all of these reports based on these data sets are going to return the data you're expecting.
It's powerful stuff. That's powerful stuff. But wait, there's more. I know you're going to show us some other capabilities in ops for Power BI, but before you do that, I'm just impressed with how integrated this workflow is. As I think back to my life as a BI guy, when I was building reports and dashboards and things like that, I would have to do a bit of data modeling as a part of that work. And obviously I had some tests sort of baked into that data modeling process, but one test I was doing in Excel, another test I was doing in Access, another test I was doing over there, and so on and so forth. There was no one integrated workflow. And so it took a number of minutes and hours to complete part of it, and then another part of it, and another part of it. I'm really impressed at how, again, just simple the UI is. We can build all of these things in a no-code fashion, but also just link them one to the next to quickly say, yep, everything is good to go. Not everything is good to go. Some stuff is good, some stuff isn't good. The integratedness, that's powerful. That's really, really powerful.
And the fact that I haven't typed a single line of code here means that the data analysts out there, the ones creating these data sets, can do those tests by themselves. They don't have to rely on a QA team or IT team or anything like that. People can test their own content, which is the powerful thing here. All right, you said it. There's more.
But wait, there's more.
There's more.
Wait, there's more.
We promised 3 tests. We promised 3 demos. Let's not disappoint anybody here. All right. Back to Wiiisdom and back to my pipelines. Now, what I wanted to show you is how to test, or what we can do regarding testing reports. Now, we have a lot of good ideas for this. Let me show you what is available today. Now, think of the scenario where you have people promoting reports between different workspaces. I have my dev workspace, my prod workspace. After I deploy, I want to make sure that the two reports are exactly the same. I want to validate that the deployment really worked. So what you would do, you'd open the report in one browser, report the same report in the browser in the other workspace in a different browser, and manually try, with your eyes, try to make sure that they look the same. So again, it's a manual step. And if you deploy 20 reports, well, that's something that is time consuming. And all of these data analysts out there, you build a report today, it's in prod. Tomorrow, you're not sitting doing nothing. You're building the next report and the next report after that. And then when people say, hey, can you edit this? You back to dev, you edit, you redeploy, and now you just start managing a lot of content back and forth, dev and test and prod. So this validation becomes even more time consuming. It's preventing you to do real good work. So what we give you the ability is to do regression testing. Another scenario, maybe IT-led database migration. You have a data set today pointing to some on-premise database. Now you have a new data set, but now pointing to Google BigQuery or Snowflake or SQL Azure because you're moving to the cloud. How are you making sure that your reports will look exactly the same with the right data after you did some shift of database architecture changes? It's called regression testing. And this is what we can do here with Wiiisdom. Let me show you how I'm going to very simply take a report, which I have right here, and it is called, here we go, my sales revenue analysis. But I want to make sure that I'm validating against my development report. See here, I'm just working within the same workspace, could work within different workspace. It's amazing. So let me start with this. Once again, my post processes will be here to help you. Now, what Wiiisdom is doing in the background right now is I am going to ask Power BI, say, hey, give me the output of that report and all of its pages, by the way, if it has many pages, and I want to compare it against this other report, my dev report, and all of its pages, and making sure that if there's any differences, that I am alerted accordingly. It is quite quick. It takes less than a minute for a standard reports with a few pages. It's still loading here. So, and I'm trying to talk to fill the blanks, but it is still in progress. Here you go, it's finished.
There it goes.
Perfect
There
timing.
it goes.
37 seconds, not too bad. This is another thing here. All the tests you're doing, we're documenting when you ran them, how long it took, which reports were tested. You can use that as as evidence, or give that to audit teams and so on. Here we go. Now, in this example, only one report, only one page, and you can see that I have on the left my original report, and on the right I have another report, my dev report here, and I'm highlighting in red where there are any regressions, any differences automatically. A scenario, we talked about the conversations we had at the launch in the US. Somebody said, hey, I am going to make a change only in this part of the report, but I am not expecting the rest of the report to be impacted. How can I do that? That would be one scenario here. In the scenario, you would see the test failing, of course, because they're different, but you would expect to see only the red right here and not any reds automatically. So testing reports at scale for a number of use cases, database migration, deployment, modifying reports, any normal life cycle. Let me go back here, Jeremy, to debrief on what we've just seen here.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, just sort of thinking back on my personal experiences, this is stuff that I was doing, albeit manually. I wouldn't bring things up on two separate screens because back in my day, we didn't have two separate screens. Instead, I would print out the two different reports. I'd put them on the desk in front of me and I'd sort of use my eyeballs to identify the differences. And I would find some, if a bar chart is really small over here and really long over here, you could tell that there's a difference between the two, but things that are small but significant that I would have difficulty finding are things like capitalization changes, punctuation changes, title changes, and so on and so forth. I'm busy. I'm rushing through this. I need to get to the next thing. But you know who is going to find that if I don't? My stakeholders. And it happened again and again and again. They would appreciate that everything was mostly good, but they would say, you know, why on last month's report was this capitalized and on this month's report it's not? Or why was there a question mark over here and now there's an exclamation point? Like, these things happen. And again, just using your eyeballs, we as humans are error prone. You're going to miss those things. And so it's super cool that we've developed a automated capability to identify those changes and to flag those changes, so that way you don't need to sort of hunt for them, where's Waldo style, all on your own.
Think over time. Somebody built the report today, somebody else modify it in 6 months' time for whatever reason. We will pick, to go back on your point, we will pick on font type change, on font size, a different shade of red somewhere. So again, in not only validating the data, but this is validating the look and feel. And we know it is important for some organization to do that.
Absolutely.
Now, and for those of you with only one screen, like me, well, we're better for the environment. You don't have to print anything. So here we go. All right. Final demo for today. We could talk about Wiiisdom Ops a lot, but we have identified 3 goodies for you today. Now we'll talk about automating your deployments. Now, Microsoft obviously has a deployment pipeline manager. They have just released a lot of extra options in this latest release, which is great. But what our idea is to say, hey, why don't you run a bunch of tests, and when your data sets has been validated, why don't you automate the deployment of it as well? Now, let me go back to my test data sets example here. I'm going to duplicate that one. Excellent. And I'll show you that exact example. So that's the one which I showed you today. My data set should not be empty, should have max dates, should have these values, and so on. Now, what I want to do is, if I go back right here, I say this is the demo of test data sets, then deploy. This is why we have this task right here. I'll say, and this is where this important was example, I do not want to continue on error. If any of these tests fails, don't continue, don't deploy. So I'll do that right here. But if all of these tests are successful, what I'd like you to do is take my data set or data sets, reports or reports if you want to, all at the same time, and say, where do you want to deploy this? And this is where I can say, hey, I want to deploy that to my different workspaces right here. I'm going to put this right there. Now, you save this, you automate it. You know what's going to happen. It failed earlier, so you saw it. The deployment is not happening because I said do not continue on error. But this is the point of this automation here, and monitoring after that, because after that you could say, hey, once it's been deployed, continue to monitor the same things to make sure that if there's any problem, this is where I want to be alerted. So this was a simple demo here for simple but powerful task is, after you tested your data sets and your reports, you can also automate the deployment. And we have a great roadmap around all of these topics.
Yeah, I love deployment. I love deployment for so many different reasons, the biggest of which is trust. I mean, we talk to a lot of organizations about how they're governing their analytics environments, and some are using one workspace, some are using multiple workspaces. But of those who are just using one workspace, they're like, there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of data sets. There's a lot of reports. I don't really know which data sets and reports are accurate, recent, and therefore reliable for decision making. Our solution, and I think the industry's solution in terms of a best practice, is to separate out the fully validated, the ready to go for decision-making stuff from all other stuff. And you do that by establishing another workspace and deploying content from workspace to the next as a part of an integrated workflow. And that's not all, right? Just like what Patrick said, once that stuff is in this fully validated, ready to go workspace, setting up automated and continuing testing, automated and continuous testing around it is really, really important to stay ahead of issues. You want to identify what's going on. You don't want your stakeholder to find breakages on their own. You want to eliminate errors before they become costly risks for your stakeholder or the organization as a whole. So there you have it. Super.
There you have it.
Awesome.
All right. So what's next? What's next, Jeremy?
Next is to give us a call and have a conversation with us about Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI. So there's a couple of ways to do that. The first is to contact us directly. Drop a note on LinkedIn, send me a message, jeremy.blaney@wiiisdom.com with 3 I's, or go to the website, which we will share in just a second here, or maybe we have an overlay. I don't really know. The second option is to visit us on there you go, get started, scan that QR code. We're going to pause, give everybody an opportunity to do that. And then let's go back to the previous slide. Sorry. And then if you could kill that overlay, thank you. Clearly so well rehearsed. The other options, honestly, go to Microsoft AppSource or the Microsoft Azure Marketplace. Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI is a listing on both of those marketplaces, for lack of a better term. And there you can initiate a conversation with us about how we can help you automate testing, not just, again, for data sets, but also reports, all in an effort to eliminate those pesky errors that we saw previously, which could lead to very significant and costly risks for your organization. And so without further ado, again, visit us, wiiisdom.com. We would love to better understand how you are or you are not testing today, so we can provide some guidance on how to move forward. Any other concluding thoughts, Patrick?
I was going to say it's been emotional. First live webinar after the launch just a few weeks ago. It's great to see the interest out there about people who care about governance, they care about testing. They do it sometimes, but it's manual, it's time consuming. So yeah, we'd love to talk to you about what our solution can do to help accelerate all this, automate, and give trust and value to your community.
All right. And so to conclude where we started, I want all of you to put up those hoods, get out there and try to deliver a total knockout to those bad decisions by adopting governance processes within your organization. So thanks all for joining today. We really do appreciate it. Again, visit us on www.wiiisdom.com and we'll have a conversation with you about how we can help you test smarter, not harder with Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI. Thanks all.
All right, see you next time. Bye.